Hello and welcome back to Spain Unfiltered. Now, I know I put a video out a couple of weeks ago saying that I'd be taking a break from making videos for a little while I focused on writing my book. More about that in a minute, but I realized that I already had a video pretty much finished and ready to go, and frankly I needed a break from writing, so here it is. My top 5 destinations on the South Costa Blanca, starting with Gran Alicant.
So the first up is Gran Alicant. It's a relatively modern urbanisation. Gran Alicant is less than 10 minutes drive from Alicante Airport and from the city of Alicante itself. The urbanisation is in 2 distinct halves. The newer part, which has an excellent commercial area and is made up mainly of detached villas, is close to the main N332 coast road, and it's more or less at sea level, whereas the older area, which is mainly made up of terraced houses and apartments, is perched on top of a steep hill with stunning views over the Mediterranean. Now, at the foot of that hill there is a lovely natural beach area and nature reserve, all linked up by wooden walkways. One of the things which makes Gran Alicant stand out to me is its public transport. Whereas some areas nearby are pretty sparse on that front, Gran Alicant has regular bus services around the urbanisation. There are plenty of bars and restaurants in the urbanisation itself, and if you want to venture out to somewhere that's a bit more lively, then there are buses into the city, and if you miss the last one home, it's not too far to jump back in a cab. Of course, being close to the airport makes it easy to come and go from overseas, with lots of gated communities within the urbanisation. It's a good location, not just for permanent living, but for lock-up and leave holiday homes. There are medical facilities, a large sports centre, and aside from the large commercial centre, several other small commercial areas dotted about. On the downside of all of the areas I'll talk about in this video, it's probably not the best for golfers. You're never a huge distance from a golf course on the Spanish coast, however, there aren't any on your doorstep here. Also, despite being right on the coast, the hill does make it difficult to walk to the beach, and Arenales de Sol at the bottom of the hill is a ghost town in the winter, but it's packed with holidaymakers from Madrid in the summer, so that lovely quiet beach is definitely not so quiet when you want it the most. Ciudad Quesada is the largest of the individual urbanizations on this list. Conceived by Justo Quesada Samper in the 1970s, it's built around a large hill next to the town of Rojales, just inland of the Salt Lakes Nature Reserve. Quesada has been developed as a self-contained residential unit, pretty much a town in its own right. It has everything that you need for day-to-day life, from the practicalities like supermarkets and doctors to leisure facilities like a bowling alley, aquapark, culture centre, and the 18-hole La Marquesa golf course. There's a really bustling high street with lots of options for food and drinks, and a few other commercial centres dotted around the urbanisation. Its location gives really easy access to the rest of the coast. It's right on the AP7 motorway, so you can get up to the airport easily or jump down to the golf courses and shopping hub at Orihuela Costa. And there are pretty straight routes to Torrevieja and Guadamar for beach days. If you're after that kind of classic villa with a reasonably sized plot, then Quesada is a good place to look. But there are also plenty of smaller properties and properties more suited to occasional holiday homes. There are also pretty impressive modern-style villas and communities popping up around the area.
On the downside, Ciudad Quesada doesn't have brilliant transport links, certainly not within the urbanisation itself.
And being as large as it is, some properties are quite a long way from the shops and bars. The stunning views come at the cost of steep roads, and you'll need to be pretty fit to get around on foot, or you'll need a car.
Overall though, it's a cracking destination, really well positioned with a great variety of properties and things to do, and it's a great base camp to explore the rest of the coast from.
Orihuela Costa, which extends down the coast from Torrevieja to Campo Amor, is really more of a collection of urbanizations and developments rather than a single location. In fact, I'll probably do a video breaking those areas down further in the future. But there is a general commonality to the area, and to get that across, I think you need to know a bit of its history. Orihuela Costa was the epicenter of the boom in the late 90s and 2000s.
I can remember standing on the roof terrace of a show house probably in about 2001 and counting over 70 tower cranes. The development was like nothing I had seen before or have seen since.
Orihuela Costa is governed by the town hall in Orihuela, which is about 35 kilometres away from the coast via B roads. So, for the planners in the town hall, Orihuela Costa was out of sight and out of mind.
It was treated as a cash cow, flooding money into Orihuela Town Hall through building licenses, municipal taxes, and, well, I expect some brown envelopes as well.
Amidst this construction free-for-all, all of these individual developments grew into one with almost nothing in the way of town planning or infrastructure to support the thousands of new homes. Now, I'm not going to lie. As somebody who grew up when the area was covered in citrus orchards and cotton fields, I thought it was a disaster.
For a long time, I barely set foot in the area, but when you have a negative view about something, then there's nothing better than being proven wrong.
In the years that followed that uncontrolled boom and then the bust, infrastructure has largely caught up. Whereas everything used to feed from the arterial M332 road, which was constantly gridlocked, there are now easier ways to move around between the areas, and the M332 itself has been extended to a dual carriageway. The AP7 gives easy access to Alicante Airport, and Orihuela Costa is far enough south that Murcia Airport becomes an equally viable option. La Xenia Boulevard has given the whole area a central focus point, and now that the properties and developments that were built during the boom years have had time to mature, the whole area has a more cohesive feel and identity, while keeping the individual identities of the original developments that have been encompassed within it. All of these areas have commercial centres with their own bars and restaurants. It's fantastic for golfers with 4 18-hole courses grouped close together, and it's just a short jaunt down the motorway to Murcia where there are even more courses available.
There are still some areas which don't quite make sense, and there are some areas which are overdeveloped. There are some areas which are a bit unkempt, and there is some infrastructure missing, like a decent sports centre. But overall, Orihuela Costa has come into its own. It has a huge amount to offer and something to suit everybody. I really do recommend giving the area a good look and not just scratching the surface.
Well, we cannot talk about the South Costa Blanca without mentioning Torrevieja. Torrevieja is the largest town on the Costa Blanca south, and it's a bit of a Marmite area. To the non-Brits watching, that means you either love it or you hate it.
Unlike most of the areas on this list, Torrevieja is a town rather than an urbanisation or a suburb of another municipality.
Its history dates back centuries as a coastal port known for its salt and fishing industries. Now, sadly, not much of the old town remains, as most of the town has been reconstructed with large blocks of apartments, but there are a couple of must-sees there, like the old casino. The kind of apartments that you find in Torrevieja town centre don't tend to have much outdoor space. You spend your time outdoors in more public areas, one of the hundreds of bars and cafes or the beach. The marina, the promenade and the beaches, like Playa de los Locos, are blue flag and well looked after, and in the summer there's open air live music and lots of events for you to take in. If you're not planning to head out of the town, then, well, you don't really need a car to access everything you need day to day. But if you do need a car, don't even think about buying a property that doesn't have parking. If you love hustle and bustle and the vibrant nightlife and having all of that on your doorstep with lots to offer within a walking distance, then this might well be the place for you. But go a couple of streets in from the town's well-kept coastal facade and it starts to tell a different story. There are plenty of areas that are pretty run down, and as you move further north to the areas which were built for the expat and touristic market, you move further from the town's attractions, and, well, all I can say is that those areas are not for me. The properties may be cheaper, but when property is cheap, there's normally a reason.
I think that generally your money could be spent on a smaller property elsewhere and give you a better quality of life. Also, if you watch my video about the Costa Blanca South, well, that's where this clip came from. But I might be wrong. There are plenty of people who live there and love it. If you're one of them, please do let me know why in the comments below, and I'd love to be proven wrong. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would appreciate your insight. Oh, and Torrevieja is home to the coolest stray cat I have ever seen. Okay, so we've gone through 4 of the 5 top locations, and I promised to save my favourite for last. But before I jump into that, I just want to say, if you've watched this far into the video, then you must be taking some value from it, and I really do appreciate your support. The whole Spain Unfiltered project is built around my genuine hope that I can help people who are thinking about moving to Spain achieve their goal and get to enjoy many of the things I've been lucky to enjoy myself. It's also about helping people avoid some of the mistakes which I have seen ruin other people's plans. For the last couple of months, I've been putting all of my available time into writing a comprehensive guide to purchasing property and moving to Spain. All of my experience and training is going into it, and it takes you from the initial planning steps all the way through to when you've moved in and you're setting up your direct debits and choosing your new curtains. Whether you're from Europe or from outside the EU, every detail is covered. I've tried to make this book as interesting and engaging as possible with real-world advice and anecdotes and case studies, and it's written in a normal, understandable language, not deliberately convoluted legal spiel. I've put all of the information about the book and its content on my website. It's linked to in the description or via this QR code. If it sounds interesting to you, please check it out. And if you like what you see, it would be a huge help to me if you could fill out the form to reserve a copy. There's no commitment to buy it when it is actually published, but by doing so, it helps me to assess how much interest there is and the best way to approach publishing. Of course, also at this stage, there is the scope for things to be added. So if you look at the content and you think something's missing or you have any questions to ask, I'd love to hear from you. Your perspective, of course, is really important to me. I'm hoping that the digital version will at least be available to download in July, with the printed version coming shortly afterwards. But there are some factors which are out of my control, so I can't give an exact date. Once it's published, I will be having a much needed lounge around the pool for a couple of weeks before I set about making some more videos. Anyway, back to the Costa Blanca. I promised I would save the best for last, and as I said, this is my personal favourite. Everyone is different. I'm sure others will disagree, but I really think this is a gem. Let me explain why.
Pilar de la Horadada is the southernmost municipality on the Costa Blanca. It's right on the border with the region of Murcia. However, up until 1986, the town fell under the jurisdiction of Orihuela. Now that's really significant, because when the boom came 10 years or so later, Pilar had its own town hall with its own planning office. On top of that, Pilar is a small municipality. A lot of its area is taken up by nature reserves and active farming. Building land is therefore a scarcer resource.
As a result of this, there was a far greater emphasis on effective town planning and sustainability, and that is evident when you explore the area.
There are 3 distinct parts to the municipality. Torre de la Horadada on the coast, the town itself, Pilar de la Horadada, and then Pina de Campoverde, a former urbanisation that was incorporated under the town hall in the 1990s. Torre de la Horadada, named for its watchtower, has grown significantly over the last 20 years. It has fantastic beaches all the way down the coast, from Mil Palmeras to the natural, peaceful beaches of Playa de las Igaricas in Almajon. Torre has a lovely town square. It also has a kind of mini Villa Martin style centre at Pueblo Latino. It has fantastic promenades to walk along and a marina which is about to undergo a €6 million refurbishment. There's plenty of open public space and some really interesting modern architecture there too. And just over the border in San Pedro is the Pinata Arena Sports Centre, where it's not unusual to see Premiership and international teams practicing off-season. The town of Pilar itself is a working town. As such, the population is pretty stable all year round. There are some great local facilities, not least the Municipal Sports Centre, which for a population of around 20,000 people is absolutely mind-blowing. Pilar de la Horadada takes its fiestas very seriously, with great Easter parades, and when it comes to the Fiestas Patronales in October, that's basically a solid month of fun. The main Rambla has been developed so that it's not just a concrete storm drain, but a grassed municipal park area where you'll see people out and about having evening walks. Heading inland, you will pass Loromero Golf Course, which is rather unique in the whole area because rather than being built by property developers, it was commissioned and is owned by the town. Finally, the village of Pinar de Campoverde is set about 400 feet above sea level in the foothills of the Sierra Escalona Nature Reserve. Campoverde is in many ways like a smaller, quieter Ciudad Quesada, but set in a pine forest. There's loads of open public space to enjoy. The older part of the village is almost entirely made up of individual detached villas on large plots of land. The newer part is again made up largely of detached properties with some terraced and low-rise apartment blocks too. The main developer in the newer part sold plots and villas designed separately, so the streets show variation rather than rows and rows of identical properties. There's everything you need in the village: doctors, vets, a supermarket, small petrol station, a satellite office from the main town hall with English-speaking staff. There's an ambulance base, excellent sports centre, a municipal pool, and, as with the whole of the Pilar area, the municipal upkeep is better than anywhere else I know.
So there you have it, my top 5 destinations on the South Costa Blanca. I'd love to hear whether you think I got it right, whether there's anywhere I missed, or whether you really don't like some of the places I've looked at. Whatever your opinion is, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. I'm going to disappear now and get on with that book I just told you about. I'll be back soon with some more videos. Until then, please do like, subscribe, and well, you can always contact me through the website if you have any questions. Thank you very much indeed. Oh shit, here we go. Here we go.